Lebanon is basically this tiny country in the Middle East, but it's stuck right in the middle of all these massive regional interests. I mean, just imagine. It shares a border with Israel, it's right next to Syria, and it's caught in this endless cycle of regional conflict. And the thing is, Lebanon doesn't have a huge military, and it's not some global economic powerhouse either. But somehow, its land keeps turning into a tug of war for foreign powers and regional players. Inside the country, it's just as messy. We're talking a never-ending political crisis, a collapsed economy, currency that's lost all its value. The state is barely even functioning at this point. For years, the government has been totally limping along, and the people are just forced to survive without any certainty. In the middle of all this collapse, how does a country even keep going, especially when the news is bleak and the threat of war is always just lurking outside? Today, we're going to dive deeper into the conflict in Lebanon. For the past few years, Lebanon has been trapped in this super extreme political mess. The country's basically been running without an effective government. And in Lebanon, no government doesn't mean total anarchy. It's more like the country is being managed by a temporary caretaker team. Think of it like a machine running on autopilot. They have very limited power, no elected president, and zero political mandate to make any big calls. In Lebanon, this isn't just about bureaucracy. It's because of their unique system where power has to be split by religion. Like, the president must be a Maronite Christian, the prime minister a Sunni Muslim, and the speaker of parliament a Shia Muslim. The problem, when these groups can't agree, everything just stops. This deadlock hit a breaking point on October 31st, 2022, when President Michel Aoun's term ended with no successor. For over 2 years, the parliament was so divided they couldn't pick a new one. So Lebanon was led by this temporary cabinet whose hands were literally tied. I mean, technically, their only job was to keep the country from totally collapsing. They couldn't make new policies, start big reforms, or sign international deals. For hundreds of days, crucial decisions to save the economy were just ignored. Only emergency Band-Aid solutions were handled. But if we look back, the seeds of this disaster were planted way back during the 2019 protests, when people were just so done with the corruption. Then the Beirut port explosion in August 2020 happened, and it just broke whatever trust was left. By late 2022 to early 2025, Lebanon was stuck in this paralyzing status quo. There was finally a glimmer of hope in early 2025 when Joseph Aoun was elected president, followed by Nawaf Salam as PM in February. But honestly, the damage was already done. Vital stuff like electricity, water, and healthcare, they've completely tanked. Like in August 2024, the whole country went dark because they couldn't pay for fuel. It was a domino effect. Water pumps stopped, hospitals had to limit surgeries, and schools couldn't even keep the lights on. It's just heartbreaking. People see this caretaker government as half-hearted, too weak to change anything, but sticking around way too long without a plan. It's caused a massive brain drain, with skilled people just leaving. Foreign investment gone. For 3 years, Lebanon felt like a car speeding down a steep hill with no one at the wheel. One tiny mistake, and it's over. And even with the new government in 2025, fixing this mess, it's going to be a massive uphill battle. Like I mentioned before, this 3-year political deadlock in Lebanon, it's all because of its super unique and honestly super complicated political system. It's probably one of the most complex setups in the entire world. This isn't just modern politics. It's built on a long history of all these different religious communities trying to live together. at the heart of it is something called confessionalism. Basically, it's a power-sharing deal where seats are reserved for specific religious groups. The idea was to make sure everyone had a voice and no one felt left out in such a diverse country. This whole thing started with the National Pact of 1943. It's this unwritten agreement that's been the de facto rulebook for Lebanon since it gained independence from France. It was a compromise between the Maronite Christian and Sunni Muslim elites. Technically, it created this troika system for the top jobs. The president must be a Maronite Christian, the prime minister a Sunni Muslim, and the speaker of parliament a Shia Muslim. And it doesn't stop there. The parliament is split 50-50 between Christians and Muslims. Lebanon officially recognizes 18 different religious sects, and every single one of them gets a slice of the pie in the government and bureaucracy. On paper, it sounds fair, right? It's meant to stop one group from bullying the others because every major decision needs everyone to agree. But in reality, it's a nightmare. It makes the country totally dependent on these groups getting along. Since every leader's power comes from their own religious community, they'll just veto anything that doesn't benefit their specific sect. That's why picking a president can take years because everyone has a veto card and they're not afraid to use it. In the beginning, this helped keep the peace, but over time, what was supposed to be a bridge to stability turned into a trap for corruption and patronage. Certain elites started using the system just to stay in power and keep the money flowing to their own circles, totally ignoring what's actually good for the country. Plus, the system is just stiff. It can't adapt to changes in population or new political vibes. So instead of fixing things, this structure just deepens the divide and makes everyone trust each other even less. It's like a system designed for peace is actually the thing keeping them stuck. Since late 2019, Lebanon has been facing one of the worst economic crises in modern history. It's so bad that experts are calling it an economic depression rather than just a recession. This didn't just happen overnight. It was the breaking point after years of bad fiscal moves, political drama, and being way too dependent on imports and money sent from people abroad. One of the most heartbreaking parts is watching the Lebanese pound just collapse against the US dollar. Before all this, the rate was super stable for decades, around 1,507 pounds to a dollar. But as the country's reserves ran dry, the value just plummeted. The World Bank says the pound has lost over 98% of its value. Think about that. A whole bag of cash that used to buy your groceries, now it's basically worth nothing. Your savings, your hard-earned money, it just vanished because everything you need, like food and medicine, is priced in dollars. This triggered massive inflation. Prices went out of control, reaching triple digits, even hitting over 200% between 2022 and 2023. It made Lebanon one of the most expensive places to live in terms of inflation. Now, more than half the country lives below the poverty line. Families are literally forced to choose between buying food and sending their kids to school or going to the doctor. It's such a sad irony. And the banks, they used to be the backbone of the economy. Now they're part of the problem. Dollars became so rare that banks just stopped letting people withdraw their own money. Even if your account said you had dollars, they'd only let you take out Lebanese pounds at a way lower rate than the market. People basically lost access to their life savings. It feels like the system just betrayed them. Now, Lebanon is relying on international aid just to stay afloat. The World Bank has stepped in with millions of dollars for social safety nets, but it's a double-edged sword. This aid comes with demands for reforms that the messy political system can't even handle yet. So, people are turning to the informal economy just to survive. If the banks won't help, they rely on remittances, money sent from family members living overseas. Honestly, that money is the only thing keeping millions of families from starving right now. Some people are even bartering or using micropayments. It's keeping them alive, but it also means the government gets less tax money, making it even harder for the state to fix itself. It's like everyone is just trying to stay above water while the ship is sinking. Geographically, Lebanon is stuck right at this heavy intersection of the Middle East. It's bordered by Israel to the south and Syria to the east and north, making it this ultimate crossroads for regional interests that always seem to clash. Historically, this has made Lebanon so vulnerable. It's not just a country, it's like an arena where big powers and non-state armed groups play out their massive regional dramas. This constant conflict, even when it's not a full-scale war, is just part of daily life now, especially in the south. That border area is a constant flashpoint for military clashes with Israel. And honestly, this tension isn't new. Ever since Israeli forces were in Lebanon back in 2000, Hezbollah has positioned itself as the main force fighting against them. This long-term feud between Israel and Hezbollah is just a cycle of rockets, artillery, and airstrikes. Reports from places like Human Rights Watch show thousands of these calculated attacks since things flared up again, especially after the war in Gaza started in October 2023. Israel has carried out the majority of the strikes, while Hezbollah and its allies launched their counterattacks. Between 2023 and 2024, things just got worse. We're talking tens of thousands of cross-border incidents involving the Israeli military and groups like Hezbollah, the Al-Fajr forces, or even Hamas units operating inside Lebanon. Israel has launched thousands of airstrikes, hitting the south and even deep inside Lebanon. This whole cycle just shows how Lebanon's location makes it a magnet for big actors with their own agendas. With Hezbollah having such a strong base in the south, the fighting gets incredibly intense. Their involvement is usually fueled by solidarity with Palestine, or as a response to what Israel does at the border. Plus, because of Hezbollah's ties with Iran, any drama between Israel and Iran ends up hitting Lebanon too. It's just this endless uncertainty. Even when there are ceasefire talks, they're often broken and the tension never truly stops. And in the middle of all this fighting, it's the civilians who pay the price. Like in 2024, when a massive wave of Israeli airstrikes killed hundreds of civilians and forced tens of thousands to flee their homes. Or in October 2025, when Israel even struck UN peacekeepers at the border. UN and Lebanese health data report thousands of injuries, hundreds of deaths in a single day, and millions of people losing their homes and basic services. It's just a lot for one country to take. For years, Lebanon has been facing this multi-layered crisis, economic, political, and security-wise. It's made life so incredibly hard for regular people, but it's also shown this amazing community solidarity, even when the state is shaking. On the streets of Beirut, Tripoli, the Bekaa Valley, and tiny towns across the country, life isn't just about the normal daily routine anymore. It's a long, exhausting struggle for the basics: food, electricity, and healthcare. And it doesn't end there. They're still dealing with sky-high inflation, no jobs, and public services that are just broken. Latest World Bank data shows Lebanon is still prioritizing cash aid and social services to protect the most vulnerable, which just shows how heavy the pressure really is. People have had to get creative just to survive, everything from migrating to community sharing to some really innovative ideas. So many families are literally staying afloat because of money sent from relatives working abroad. Meanwhile, independent groups are stepping in to provide food and education because, honestly, about 17% of the population is still facing acute food insecurity. But there's a cultural side to this too. So many artists, musicians, and writers are using art as a form of quiet resistance. From performances in open squares to street art in narrow alleys, culture has become their way of processing trauma and finding hope. Even when the economy is failing and war feels close, the heart of Beirut stays alive. Still, you can feel the collective exhaustion. People are tired, frustrated, and skeptical. After years of delayed policies and zero reform, a lot of hope has just faded. In the middle of all that, the new government formed in early 2025 felt like a tiny turning point. Led by President Joseph Aoun and PM Nawaf Salam, they finally ended over 2 years of a power vacuum. It gave people a glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, this multi-dimensional crisis could be handled. There are plans for bank restructuring and meeting IMF requirements, showing a real commitment to making the hard moves. Public reaction has been mixed, honestly. On one hand, a Gallup poll showed a huge spike in approval ratings, the highest in 2 decades at one point in 2025. There's this desperate wish to trust the system again. But on the other hand, there's deep skepticism. People fear that without deep structural changes to the sectarian system, this is just a pause before the next crash, not a real recovery. Looking at it today, Lebanon is still standing. It's still there on the map. But in reality, millions of its people face a daily battle for the most basic things. Even though the World Bank reports early signs of recovery and some growth in 2025, it's all so fragile because the political foundation is still shaky. It's clear that building Lebanon isn't just about having leaders in office. It's about the trust of the people, a government that actually works for them, and a collective hope for a better future. And that can only happen with change that goes all the way to the roots.